This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. Hope all of you have had a fantastic weekend as it starts to wind down a little bit. We're not winding down with our NBA coverage, so much to get to on today's show. Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, Russell Westbrook latest, and with KD, could he go back to the Warriors? The trade speculation continues. According to Brian Windhorst, the Warriors have discussed trading for KD, and according to Chris Broussard, KD wants a reunion in the Bay. We'll dive into that momentarily, but first, have you subscribed to us here at Chat Sports? If you haven't, make sure you do by hitting that red sub button down below. Of course, our NBA coverage over the last couple of months has been killer throughout the NBA draft as well as free agency, but it's not all we do. We cover the NFL as well as college football, and it's my goal to get to 318,000 subscribers by the end of the day with this video. 29 people left in order to get there, and if we do that, the bosses are going to be very impressed with the work that we put in on a Sunday because we're doing it for the homies. So make sure you subscribe. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv or hit that red sub button down below. So we pivot back to Kevin Durant, and let's set the foundation, get you caught up on everything going down with KD. Brian Windhorst saying at the end of last week, Golden State, they've discussed trading for Durant. Chris Broussard saying that KD wants to return to the Bay. Steph Curry also hasn't shut down the idea, according to several reports out there. And as far as what Broussard had to say, Durant wants to go back to the Warriors, does not want to play with Kyrie Irving, which in turn would end his tenure with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the KD trade market currently at a standstill. And with the NBA Summer League winding down, doesn't mean that all of these executives, these coaches, and these players, they're going to get away from the game of basketball. They're going to go on vacation because now is the true portion of the offseason. And because of that, are these trade conversations around KD going to stop until a couple of weeks later or in the lead up to NBA training camp, which is still a couple of months away? That's the fascinating element of this. Now, as for what Chris Broussard had to say about KD, Golden State can offer Brooklyn a very strong package, he said, better than most teams in the NBA for KD. A source texted me after KD's trade request and said that KD doesn't want to play with Kyrie Irving. He wants to go to Golden State. It's not an impossibility. And while it might not be an impossibility for Durant to go back to the Warriors, you have to think that in his head, he's thinking, okay, what's it going to do for my legacy if I go back to the Warriors? And I don't think it's likely that KD returns, but from his standpoint, from a basketball perspective, he goes back to the Warriors. They are going to be title favorites for 2022-2023. He can get back to a winning culture and the winning ways that he has been missing and lacking in Brooklyn. And we know that it's an all-time bad business move for Durant, having left the Warriors and the most selfless culture that we've ever seen in the history of the NBA, playing alongside Steph, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, great general manager in Bob Myers, a supportive and aggressive owner in Joe Lacob, and a great coach in Steve Kerr, to go to the completely unknown in Brooklyn. But if Durant wants to go back to his winning ways, the best place to do it, in my opinion, is with the Warriors. And for the Warriors, they have a great trade package that they can put together that would center around these players. And I'm not saying all of them, but be centered around some of these players. James Wiseman, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, Jordan Poole. All those players could be packaged in a deal for KD. So it's fascinating on so many levels because a reunion would be crazy. Would it be good for the NBA? Would it be bad? I'm not sure. All I know, the Warriors would be a good and dominant basketball team. And up to this point, KD can still play. He's 34 years old. Injuries adding up a little bit. He missed 2019-20 because of that torn Achilles that he suffered in the 2019 NBA Finals. But even this past year, 55 games played, once again, cut a little bit short because of injuries. Nearly 30 points per game, and the efficiency shooting the basketball has always been fantastic, 52 and 38, the shooting splits this past year. And if KD goes to a team like Golden State, the burden won't be on him all the time. The pressure won't be on him night in, night out to produce at a level where he has to put forward 30 points per game because he's playing with a really good team, even though the Warriors would have to give up some pieces, which would damage their depth to a certain degree on that roster. So with that, before we get to Donovan Mitchell, I want to ask you about KD. and his destination, his team in 2022-2023. Again, I think a return to the Warriors is unlikely, and I don't think a return to the Nets is out of the question. Either way, you let me know and join the conversation in the comment section right now. From KD to Donovan Mitchell, from Brooklyn to New York, Knicks still going hard after D-Mitch. And according to reports, New York wants to land Mitchell, ideally without giving up more than 4 or 5 of their 8 first-round picks. They also want to keep their young wing in the southpaw, the lefty R.J. Barrett, who continues to get better and better each year. And according to Mark Stein on his Substack, the Jazz have a difference of opinion of what they want as compared to what the Knicks are willing to give up. Of those 8 first-round picks, they want 6. That's why these things are called negotiations, folks, because you can try to negotiate that down from 6, ideally to maybe 5 or 4. From the Knicks' perspective, or for Utah, you can try to drive that asking price up. Here's my concern with the Knicks' pursuit of Donovan Mitchell. Offensively, with Jalen Brunson and D-Mitch, it'd be fun to watch. If they hold on to R.J. Barrett, it's a really good wing. They fortified the front court in free agency with Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, and Jericho Sims throughout the summer league was playing well as well. But defensively, it's not a good defensive backcourt. D-Mitch, Brunson, they're just not great defensive players, especially Mitchell. This past year, he was bad. He couldn't stop your grandma in the NBA playoffs. Brunson, a little bit of a defensive player, but when you match both of them up, opposing teams are going to try to exploit that mismatch on the defensive end of the floor. For what Mark Stein said about D-Mitch, here you go. The Knicks seem to be thoroughly undaunted by the prospect of Mitchell and Brunson forming a very small and defensively challenged backcourt tandem. So they're not concerned about it, according to Stein, or the fact that neither, to put it charitably, is known for their passing, or the natural questions about how Randle and Barrett would fit alongside them. Speaking of Julius Randle here, I think this is a pretty interesting point when you talk about the acquisition of Jalen Brunson as well as Donovan Mitchell. 2 years ago, we're talking about Julius Randle as like an all-NBA player. But I want to get to some more thoughts on Randle coming up around the corner. First, let me ask you this question. If the Knicks acquire Donovan Mitchell, how many games will New York win next year? And will they be among some of the top teams in the Eastern Conference? Let me know right now once more in the comment section. So going back to the Randle aspect of this, it was ugly in New York last year. He was beefing with Tom Thibodeau. He was beefing with the roster, coaches, the fans. It was bad. It seemed contentious. But again, 2 years ago, all-NBA player. Last year, wasn't good. Was he bad last year because New York didn't have a prototypical point guard or a high-level point guard? Now, a couple years ago, and he was really good. I understand that Elfrid Payton was maneuvering things offensively for New York, but he's more of a pass-first point guard and a facilitator than what the Knicks actually had last year. Just a quick thought on Julius Randle. Maybe he rebounds because the defensive focus won't be on him. It'll be on Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. Another reminder to subscribe to the channel. The bosses are telling me right now, Chase, if we don't get 29 subs on this video and get to 318,000, you might be canned. And honestly, I really love my job getting to chop it up with all of you, talking NBA, NFL, as well as college football. So help us out, and you won't regret subscribing to the channel. Hit that sub button down below. We round out today's show, getting to the latest, hottest news and rumors around Russell Westbrook. So he parted with his agent of 14 years. It's a really long time. And it was a little bit odd for that move to happen this late in the process, and also after 14 years, a decade and a half. It has led to a bunch of speculation. Is Russ going to demand a trade? Is he unhappy with his current situation in Los Angeles? What is next for one of the most highlight reel-worthy players that we've seen in this generation? So he opted into his player option, $47.1 million. That's what he's due this upcoming year by the Lakers or another acquiring team. Then he splits with his agent a couple days ago, Thad Fouché of Wasserman Media Group, at their 14-year partnership. And I thought this was interesting. Thad went to the media and said to Adrian Wojnarowski, they split because of irreconcilable differences. That's what caused the split. So that's interesting on a couple of levels, right? Because you're not sure why Russ decided to move on from his agent, who's done a lot for him throughout his entire NBA career. Like, as soon as Russ left UCLA, that's when he hired Thad to be his agent. And he's made him a lot of money. He has won some of the trades. He has helped Russ become a Jordan Brand athlete. and one of the biggest superstars that this game has ever seen. So the verbiage and the move to me is somewhat surprising. And when you talk about a split after 14 years, shout out to Petey for this. This is like Christmas card, how are the kids territory, right? You have a relationship with somebody for so long, especially for 14 years, you're sending them a Christmas card or your family every single year so that they can post that thing on the refrigerator so that everybody sees it for a couple of months. And also, you're checking in with that. Yo, how's the fam? How's your kids? How are they all doing? So to split over that amount of time and that strong hold of a relationship, what's going to happen next and what's the next domino to fall? Now, here's what Dad had to say about the partnership no longer continuing. I represented Russell Westbrook for 14 years, and I am proud of our partnership, which included a highly successful 2008 draft, a Supermax contract, and the only renegotiation and extend max contract in history. I also supported Russ throughout his rise into a prominent fashion industry figure and recently orchestrated 3 successive trades on Russell's behalf, culminating with the trade to his hometown Lakers. Each time teams gave up valuable players and assets to acquire him, and each time a new organization embraced his arrival. We did it together with grace and class, and that grace and class is now coming to an end. So again, you go back to the original thoughts here. Does this mean now that Russ is going to force a trade? There's no way that the Lakers are going to extend him to a contract, so I can't see that being a part of the equation. And it's Thad, because he did say that he thinks that Russ's best decision and best move is to return to the Lakers. But if Russ doesn't want to go back to the Lakers, he wants to force a trade. And Thad's like, you know what? I've orchestrated 3 trades for you. I'm done. And Russell's like, you know what? You're not giving me what I want? Then we're going to split after 14 years. So interesting stuff right there. Grade Westbrook as a player right now, 1 to 100 on the NBA 2K scale, because we're about to look at some numbers that might alter your thinking a little bit, so maybe you want to wait in order to get your player grades in for Russell Westbrook. When it comes down to Russ, he has to be realistic about who he is right now and the player that he's becoming. He has never made the necessary changes to evolve and change his game. It's almost as if the NBA game has passed him by. He's never become a really good three-point shooter, and he continues to play that maddening and reckless style of basketball that doesn't lend itself to playoff success and winning games. You look at his numbers the last 2 years. Points per game, good. Rebounds, good. Assists per game, north of 9. Where I have a problem with Russell Westbrook, it's that he's way too aggressive and never knows when to slow the game down. Doesn't have a good feel for the game. He's always going for the kill shot, and he's always playing like his head's on fire. And the field goal, 3-point percentages, somewhat problematic there. 44 and sub 31%. So in nowadays NBA, when you want your point guards to be more efficient, when you want them to knock down the threes and space the floor a little bit, Russ hasn't been able to do that. And also, going back to him firing his agent, interesting stuff going on between him and the Lakers right now, and him and LeBron James, a relationship that at one point looked really strong. Is it cratering and is it falling apart? Los Angeles Times, Dan Wojcicki saying this: the relationship between the Lakers and Russ has looked severely strained this offseason. He attended the Lakers Summer League opener in Las Vegas, but he and LeBron James, who was also there, did not speak. A stark contrast to their time together last summer after the trade. The awkwardness was noted throughout NBA circles, with strong beliefs that the Lakers' biggest stars have been pushing for the team to trade for Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving. Now, on the Kyrie front, things are also interesting here. Was supposed to play in the Drew League, and of course, flaky Kyrie didn't end up playing. Drew League was asked, hey, is Kyrie going to play? They said, yeah, not sure what the deal is. LeBron played, DeMar DeRozan played, Kyrie was supposed to, and he never ended up playing. Is that because he wants to get traded to the Lakers? Doesn't want an injury to happen? Something like that? Hey, the NBA rumors, offseason schedule, it is absolutely crazy. Speaking of Russ and his future, where will he play in 2022, 2023? Let us know. Chime in. Sound off once more in the comment section. LAL for the Lakers, O for other. As always, we appreciate all of your support of us here at Chat Sports. Make sure you subscribe.